gonna post something.
Get some people, or we can.
Oh.
Start.
Hello? Can you guys
Huh?
hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Let me
Okay,
see. I'm just gonna test. I'm gonna try to mute you, Connor. All right.
Making sure everything
Okay,
works.
I can also mute KingSithis as well. And yeah, I'll mostly be muted. If I have to step in, I'll step in, but yeah,
Roger that.
I'll try not to step in.
Sweet.
All right,
Thank
just
you,
give
Yubji.
me no problem. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay, no problem. Let me just pull up my what is anarcho-capitalism picture.
Also, Yubji, if you wanted to put a timer for 8 minutes, that's fine.
Okay, so
All right, I got a timer.
hold on, I'm gonna do something real quick. I'm gonna post something in the side chat.
See my timer back.
What'd you say?
A timer on my stream.
Okay, now I got the
yeah,
picture. I had to
yeah,
go
yeah,
onto
yeah,
my
yeah.
phone and post. Oh, I can hear myself.
Oh, yeah, he got
Oh,
muted
yeah, my
himself.
stream.
I'll just mute it on my end. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we're good to go.
Let's get started.
All right, guys. So you could start the timer now because I'm gonna start. No problem if that's all right with you. So
All right, you're on the time.
my name is KingSithis, and today we're going to be debating what is better. Are you a Christian? I mean, just one quick question: Christian nationalist or just Christian ethic?
I'm just gonna go with Christian.
Okay, so anarcho-capitalist ethics versus Christian ethics. So basically, I am an anarcho-capitalist, and what is an anarcho-capitalist? I posted in the picture in the side chat for anybody that wants to see, and I'm also displaying it on my screen so other people can also see it, so that people who are watching my stream can see it. What is an anarcho-capitalist? An anarcho-capitalist is someone who believes in a society without a state where all goods and services, including law, courts, police, and defense, are provided voluntarily through the free market instead of through taxation or coercion. Here's the breakdown. Anarchy equals no rulers or coercive state. That's where anarchy comes in. We believe in no coercive state, no rulers. Capitalism is a system based on private property, voluntary exchange, and free markets. Anarcho-capitalists believe all interactions should be voluntary. No person or institution should be allowed to force others to do anything against their will. Private property comes from self-ownership, from the fact that you own yourself, either from homesteading or claiming unused resources, or voluntary exchange. I could go deeper into any of those if you guys want me to. The state is inherently coercive because it funds itself through taxation and enforces laws by force. And the market can provide everything, even road security, dispute resolution, better and more efficiently than the state can. In short, anarcho-capitalists want anarchy in politics, no state, but capitalism in economics, voluntary trade, and property rights. So what is my problem with, Christian ethics? Now, my thing with Christian ethics is I don't really necessarily have a problem with Christian ethics so long as those ethics do not entail forcing anyone to do anything with their body or their private property against their will. So, for instance, there are some Christians that believe that prostitution should be illegal, that drug use should be illegal, that gambling should be illegal. Certain things that go against the Bible should be completely illegal, even though those things do not violate the property rights of other innocent people. I am completely against that. I do not think it really matters what the Bible said or what God says. I think that fundamentally... Wait, am I echoing? Are people saying that I'm echoing? Do I sound fine or no?
You sound fine on my end.
Okay, no problem. Just making sure. So a lot of Christians, they kind of another issue that I have with a lot of Christians is they try to act like they have this moral high ground where they be like, okay, well, my God is real, so therefore my beliefs are objective, so therefore my beliefs are better than yours, and your beliefs are based on your subjective evaluations. Where my argument is every single belief is like every single moral belief is based on someone's subjective evaluations, unless you can prove that your ideology is objective. And the only way that I could see for a Christian to prove that their ideology is objective and not based on their subjective evaluations, or in the fact that they would rather have Christian ethics as opposed to libertarian ethics based on their personal beliefs, the only way that they could prove that is by proving that God exists. But that's not the only thing they would have to do. That they would have to prove, first off, that God exists. Then they would have to prove that their God specifically believes in the exact things that they believe in. And they would have to prove, on top of that, that their version of Christianity, that Christianity is their true religion, and their version of Christianity, because there isn't just one version of Christianity, there's many versions of Christianity, is the correct one. To me, that's a very, very tall order to prove all of those things. And the only way for you to prove that your ideology is objective is for you to prove that all of those things are correct. And all the other people who have different views on that exact ideology and that God are completely incorrect, and that I should take your word for it as opposed to you. So unless you're able to prove that, then I don't see how yours is more objective than mine. But putting the whole whether or not God is real or not thing, my only fundamental ideology is that I do not think it's okay to initiate harm against innocent people. I do not think it's okay to harm innocent people or take their property. So if you disagree with that ethic, you're going to have to come up with some explanation as to why you do think it is okay to forcefully extract wealth from innocent people, and why you do think it is okay to harm innocent people. And if you could give a better explanation as to why that is, then you might have the moral high ground on that one. But from every single debate that I've ever heard or have ever been a part of, no person has ever convinced me that it is much better to violate people's rights and harm them or take their property than it is not to. And that's all I have to say. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, KingSithis.
Thank you for that opening statement. Okay. Connor, whenever you're ready, you can begin talking. I'll start your timer.
All right. I appreciate KingSithis for having this discussion. He seems like a really nice guy. But so let's get into the meat and potatoes of his view. So we agreed to the two terms of the debate, and that was the NAP and the self-ownership principle and axiom. So the NAP, which is the idea of initiating or threatening any forceful interference with an individual, their property, or their agreements, contracts, is illegitimate and should be prohibited. And the self-ownership principle, that says that each person enjoys over herself and her powers full and exclusive rights of control and use, and therefore owes no service or product to anyone else that she has not contracted to supply. However, the problem with this entire worldview is it's an ad hoc and arbitrary argument. There is no tradition, no organized authority, or scripture to affirm the correct interpretation of libertarian anarcho-capitalism. Yet there is the Nicene Creed that Protestants, Orthodox, and Catholics all agree, so we can know who is a Christian. No such thing, besides the axioms that we agreed to, of let us know who actually is a libertarian. Most importantly, there is no metaphysics in his view to even say what a person is or who is protected by the NAP. This is most evident with the issue of abortion. Despite this fact, many libertarians hold an evictionist view of abortion. This view holds that someone can prematurely induce labor because of someone's self-ownership. This can very easily entail that it would be morally permissible for someone to quote-unquote evict an 8-month baby out of a woman's womb into a cornfield, where the baby would starve and subsequently die due to the right of self-ownership. The Achilles heel of libertarianism is ultimately its broad and vague terminology. In order to win the debate, my opponent has to demonstrate why the following are also not valid forms of anarcho-capitalism / libertarianism. Remember, he gave descriptions in his opening, and here are my prescriptions based off of his descriptions. A person drank from my privately owned water supply and took gallons of water to his family without my consent. Therefore, I decide to unalive his entire family. 2. A salesman used false advertising to sell me a pack of razors, so I stabbed him to death for involuntarily trying to lie, coerce, and persuade me into a contract. There is a child who is put on a timeout by their parents, so I beat the parents with brass knuckles since they hurt their child's autonomy and freedom of movement. An innocent 5-year-old was drowning in a river, and I decided not to save them so I could play the epic game of Subway Surfers. Helping the child would consume my bodily autonomy, resources, and time. And in my ANCAP society that we agree in my society, sometimes people can own abstract concepts and ideas. So anyone who uses my arguments or the English language in a debate owes me 10% of their income, since now it's my intellectual property. As I said, these principles and axioms don't actually tell us anything about things like retaliation. Most of these are actually just mainstream liberal talking points. These policies lead to a bunch of societal problems. These include the liberalization of marriage laws, like no-fault divorce, which have led to more broken families, fatherlessness, and increases in crime, which actually decrease property values, by the way, as well as gendered conflict along with worse birth rates. You can clearly see this predominantly in black families. Libertarianism, particularly anarchism, does not fix this fundamental problem in the United States. As well, as he mentioned, he supports prostitution and sex work. And in my view, there's exploitation through this false type of work. And we can see this in studies like the Cho et al. 2013 study and the Harvard Law and Developmental Society. Countries with legalized prostitution are associated with higher rates of human trafficking inflows than countries where prostitution is prohibited. This is because the scale effect of legalizing prostitution, i.e. expansion of the market, outweighs the substitution effect, where legal sex workers are favored over illegal workers. On average, countries with legalized prostitution report a greater instance of human trafficking inflows. So if you do not want human sex slaves, do not choose the libertarian worldview. Also, the proliferation of industries that target minors, such as pharmaceutical companies with gender-affirming care, and the abortion industry, Texas Tribune. And also, opponents like to blame the government, but it's important to bring up the loving companies that we have, like Chiquita Banana, which was known for funding and supporting paramilitary groups in Colombia, CohelMilstein.com, as well as Chinese companies in Africa, forcing children to mine cobalt in the Congo, CEC.gov, and our overlords, BlackRock and Vanguard, where BlackRock violates the property rights of communities in Brazil because the profit of palm oil, soy, and cattle is greater than their rights, TheGuardian.com, and it's okay for BlackRock to lobby in these contracts, supposedly, and has over $11 trillion in assets, since they don't technically also have a monopoly on force, since the United States owns nukes. Not to mention, the East India Company hired Japanese mercenaries and had over 200,000 British mercenaries, which was twice as big as the British Army in the 1700s, History.com, and this later led to the subsequent conquer of the entire subcontinent of India. The East India Company would also collect taxes in Indian Bengal, Tax Justice Network, which meets the definition of a state in the libertarian worldview. Not to mention the military-industrial complex like Boeing and General Dynamics do not just cease to exist. Also, I'm not a fascist. I will never subscribe to a form of fascism, and this isn't a defense of all government actions. The axiom of self-ownership leads to ridiculous reductios that I will address later, and I think this leads to the rejection of the principle altogether. I also reject the idea that someone can actually own their self, because ownership inherently is going to be a social construction that we're either going to agree upon or it's going to be upheld through force. And it seems to me the libertarian self-ownership principle just leads to degeneracy. And this will lead to the moralizing of such behaviors such as polygyny, necrophilia, incest, bestiality, suicide, AI-generated child porn, or even child porn in the first place. Not only is gratuitously immoral, but permissibility of these things lead to horrible effects such as mental illness, workplace habits, and social dynamics. Since my opponent is an anarchist as well, I also reject the proposition that there even is such a thing as a stateless society, since a privately owned community leader would literally just act the same as the state, since he has a monopoly on force, quote unquote, in his respective community. And there's literally nothing stopping him except for the exercise in the strength of the governed. Which leads to my final point that destroys his entire worldview. His ethics relies on the idea is he is doing what people want and what people agree to, and it's going to be a strictly consensual society. Yet he doesn't actually believe this, because multiple polls from Gallup to criminallegalnews.org show particularly in black communities that despite the fact many want to reform the police, over 80% of African Americans actually want the same or more police presence in their community. This is consistent with Pew Research numbers where most people want the same, if not vastly more, police in their community to keep them safe. This means his movement would be wrong in the fact that individuals do not assent or give some form of consent to be governed or represented, but his view would also go against the majority of people's desires of establishing a public security system that ensures the well-being and welfare of their people. I concede my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for both of those opening statements. So now in the format of the debate, we're just going to have a free flow between you two guys. So you guys can start the conversation whenever you would like.
Okay,
All right.
Did you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So fundamentally, I feel like this whole argument is going to be hinging on how do we define property, right? Because whether or not you own your body or don't own your body will then entail whether or not other people have the right to use your body with or without your consent, or any of the property in which you've come to own. So how do you define, like, how do you determine whether or not I own something?
Well, usually I would say that I determine if you own something particularly well if you claim it. And if someone owns something, as I said, is that, like, if I have my pen, then we're going to agree that either this is my pen, or that if you try to take, quote unquote, my pen, then I will use force to protect my assets. And so we can say with the self-ownership principle, like, even if I grant that you have the self-ownership principle, I think that would lead to problems, particularly with duties in your society where people are expected to do stuff. And I think this is most evident with, for example, children in the family unit. So, like, would you say that it is slavery for for people to require parents to provide for their children?
Yes. Now, the thing is, right,
Wait.
fundamentally, what is your issue with what is your fundamental issue with self-ownership? Do you not agree that we own our bodies? Do you, like, what is your fundamental issue with it?
Because it leads to ridiculous immoral reductios, I think. So, as you said that we cannot require parents to give to their children. So here I have a hypothetical for you then.
Mhm.
So in your society, would it be moral for a parent to neglect their child through forms of abuse? Like, let's say they had an 8-month child that was born and they just didn't want to feed it. And they said, my body is completely, I own it. They can expect nothing from me. Would that be morally permissible in your view?
Well, there's a difference between moral and then legal. So from my perspective, I would say that would be immoral. I think that most people should take care of their children, but whether or not you are legally obligated to take care of another person, no, I do not believe any other person is legally obligated to take care of another person. But in the case of children, if another person wanted to come in and take care of that child or take ownership, not ownership, but take guardianship over the child, because we don't believe that people own their children. They are guardians of their children. Then I would not have if I was the parent, would not have the right to stop that person from taking basically the guardianship role of that child. Now the thing is, now I just want to ask you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask you. I don't really want to stick onto, like, the whole child thing, because I'm not trying to respectfully, like, unless you're. I see what you're kind of trying to do here. You're trying to get the most, like, worst examples that you can to try to make me seem a certain way, but which is perfectly fine. But the thing I do want to go on hard on is to see is whether or not you actually agree with the principle of self-ownership. So I just want to give you a question. So do you believe that your body is a scarce resource?
I would say that, but I think that is just obfuscating from the fact that in your society we cannot force people to take care of their children. And if we're going to legalize something
slavery.
And not you for, well, if we're not going to require people to take care of their children, I'm not too sure if this society is going to work in general. And it's going to lead, I think if we make things legal, then that leads to it happening more. And I think that's a pretty common intuition. And I think that most people would think that we have a duty to care for our children, regardless of just our feelings that it might upset us.
Yeah, so I'm very anti-slavery. I don't think that somebody should be forced to take care of or compelled to take care of another person against their will. It doesn't matter whether or not that's your child or somebody else's child or how old or how young that person is. You do not
Even
have
if
an
they die?
obligation. Yeah, even if they're going to
Even if-
die. I'm very anti-slavery. I do not think it's okay to compel people to take care of another person against their will. But that doesn't mean that I think it's personally think it's okay for somebody to abandon their child. Obviously, I think that's immoral, and I'm sure that in
You're not going to do anything about it.
no, because fundamentally, I mean, what I would do is I would probably try to find somebody who would be willing to take care of that child. But the thing is, fundamentally, the argument that I'm making is that you are the owner of your body, and our body is a scarce resource, which means that you have, and I believe that I have the right to exclude other people from that scarce resource. So that's what self ownership is. So, do you believe that you have the right to exclude other people from your body?
I think we have what's it called? I think we can have guardianship over bodies where we have limited rights to it. But as I said, is that if we take the self-ownership that I own myself as a form of property, is that it leads to ridiculous reductios, as you saying that
I agree.
parenthood
It
is
leads to slavery. Yeah, I
Well,
agree.
no, well, then we're just going to have children that are dying in our society. And would you say that
Children
people
die in
respond to
both of our societies, right?
but mine less die in mine? So, like,
I
whenever
would
we're talking
disagree.
about, well, we can get into abortion like that, where 40 million die globally a year.
I'm
But
against
also, we
abortion.
can talk. Well, also, then why don't we just evict them then?
Eviction does not entail the killing of the child.
Well, yeah, but the child still dies, and you're okay with children dying
Not
when they
necessarily. You
can't take
never
care
heard
of-
of a C-section?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
but
You
you
never
are
heard of
okay with
artificial wombs?
Well, artificial wombs don't go back to that early.
They do. They have
And also-
artificial wombs. They have them for calves. They
No.
have the technology. The state has made it illegal.
Yeah, it goes to 15 weeks, but even still, in your view, you're okay with
That's a
abandoning
lot
a
of-
child.
Yeah, I don't. Again, I'm very against. And again, I feel like I'm repeating myself. It's kind of weird, but yeah, I'm very anti-slavery. I do not think it's okay to compel somebody against their will to
I don't
take
think
care
that's
of somebody.
slavery.
It
I
is
don't think
slavery.
it's slavery.
So what is slavery?
No. Forcing someone to provide a service in the absence of a duty.
In the absence of a duty? Yeah, okay, so I agree with you. I do not believe you have a duty to any other person that isn't yourself, which would mean that you believe that it's okay to
Okay.
force somebody against their will to take care of somebody when they do not want to. And that would be
To provide for their children.
that would be yeah, because fundamentally, if I give my child up for adoption, I shouldn't be forced to take care of that child after I've given up for adoption. So,
Okay, so I have a
do
question
you
then.
believe that I should be forced to give up, should be forced to pay for my child, even though after I given it up for adoption?
No, you're mistaking the
Oh,
thing.
so then
is that
you
can
agree?
No. You're delegating your rights to another owner or another guardian, sorry.
Mhm.
So whenever you talk about this in the first place, is that in your society, not only did I address this a little bit in my opening statement, there's profit incentives. So would you say that if I was a big business and I paid a bunch of women to abandon their kids like $1,000, that would be moral in your view?
Assuming that they want to do it, I mean, that's up to them. Fundamentally, again, I'm very anti-slavery. I do not think it's okay to force people to take care of other people against your will. And you even agreed with me that you agree that it is slavery to force somebody to take care of another person against their will. So that would mean that if you were to stop those people from giving up the rights of the parental rights of their child, you would basically be saying that, yeah, I endorse slavery. I think that slavery is perfectly okay so long as whenever they do something that I disagree with, even though they're the owners of their property.
Okay, so in this hypothetical, BlackRock gives women $1,000 to put their children out in the sun where they will burn to death slowly, get skin cancer, and die. That's perfectly okay, and we shouldn't do anything about that in the libertarian anarchist view.
No, because there would be other people who would most likely not be okay with people just letting their child die and would most likely take up the guardianship role of those children. If people found out that people were doing that, and you stop them from taking up the guardianship role and stopping those children from dying, then you would be initiating an aggression against all those people who want to take up the guardianship role of that person.
Do you think if things are legal, they will happen more?
It depends on the situation.
Well, for example, like in the case of even like you can bring up, I think even like with prostitution, I said is that it does happen more, and I think that's a very common intuition. Force can cause people to go to more dangerous routes. But as I said, is that the fact that you're saying, oh yeah, you should do this with the NAP, or you should do that, means that you have a system of duties because you
Well,
have
to moving to the prostitution thing, as far as I could tell, prostitution is a consensual transaction between two consenting adults. I don't see any issue with that. Just because there are other people who break the law shouldn't stop me from having sex with a woman for money. If the woman is consenting and I'm consenting, you ever seen that one picture where it's like two people in the bed? I consent. Psh, I don't. You're literally the guy screaming, I don't.
Do you think that we should prevent child sex slaves from being in society?
Of course, because children can't consent.
So your view, you're openly okay with the fact in your view is that for your own self pleasure is that more children are going to be sold into sex slavery?
Wait a minute. Does me having sex with a prostitute cause those children to
the expansion of the market? Yes.
That's not the answer to my question.
Yeah.
The question is no. Wait. Excuse me.
On a societal level, yeah.
Excuse me. Does me having sex with a prostitute cause that child to get raped?
No, but the normalization of it does.
So
yeah,
I could. Okay. How about this?
Does.
How about this? There are a lot of children who die from car accidents. And if we banned cars, we would very easily lower the amount of children being killed in car accidents and drunk driving accidents. So by your logic,
speed limits.
That's by your logic, we should ban cars. Yeah, but don't you care about the children being killed by cars?
You don't need to do it outright. You can just do, as I said, there's laws, for example, for speed limits. People have to get a license. People have to. They can't
but if we
drive.
ban cars, right? That would most certainly lower the amount of children being killed in car accidents, right? Like pretty much down to zero.
Do you think the commodification of sex is the equivalent of being able to drive and maneuver other places?
Yeah, you're exercising your property rights.
Wait, are you saying your property rights of other women being your property?
No, the woman is the owner of her body. I'm the owner of my body, and we're transacting. She's letting me use her body, which is perfectly fine under my ethic, in exchange for money. And you're in your car, you're using your car, which is your property, to drive from point A to point B. You driving from point A to point B does not cause other people to die in car accidents. But from your logic,
regulate it.
But basically what you're saying, from your perspective, you're not talking about regulating sex work. You're talking about banning sex work. Whereas I'm saying we should ban car accidents. We should ban all cars so that we could reduce all the amount to pretty much zero, all of the children being killed by cars.
Yeah, so even in your view, if I granted you your argument, it would just present that we still would have obligations to make a lot of sex work illegal.
Okay, so you're agreeing that banning sex work outright is ridiculous. Having sex work doesn't necessarily cause that thing. It's just sort of like a byproduct of that, right?
Well, it's intrinsically linked, because what happens is that when people agree to these contracts, is that usually people will enter into a contract when they don't have as much money or resources into that. And human trafficking, by definition, involves people taking advantage of young girls, where we see that women, when they are incentivized by money, who are 18, 19-year-old, is that you have people who are in power who manipulate young girls, and then it starts off as what you say, but then we
need to go deeper. We both disagree. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. We both agree that those people doing those bad things is really bad, right?
I think
we both agree that's really bad, right?
I think what you're bad. Yeah, I think
we don't need to go into every detail, but we can both agree that people who force children to go and do those things are bad, and that should be completely illegal, right?
Yeah, let's stop it by making it.
So
make it illegal.
if we made it legal for the people who are doing it consensually, wouldn't that then give more resources to the police to hunt down the people who are doing it in an illegal way, right?
No, because there's a profit incentive for the sex work.
Not well, though. Yeah, but that's two consenting adults. I'm talking about people who are violating people's rights. If we didn't have police,
I just explained to you this.
If we didn't-
I
hold on.
explained that your market scheme with it incentivizing profit leads people who start off legal and intrinsically causes people to go down a route of manipulating and
not
coercing
necessarily.
people into a. Yes, that's what the study showed.
Not
All
necessarily.
shows. That's what the 2013
Yeah, I
study
don't
shows.
think any study is going to say that every most of
It
the women who
literally
go.
does, dude.
Hold on. You didn't even hear what my claim. I highly doubt that that study is going to say that most of the women who are going into sex work are doing so because they're being literally forced to. And if
Yeah,
so, and even
they
if that
are.
was so, I believe that should be illegal. My only thing that I think that should be illegal, right, is the act of having sex with another adult consensually. I don't think that should be illegal because they're consenting.
What I'm saying is that in your view, the commodification of sex for money and finances is that you saying that now opens up a Pandora's box that is intrinsically linked to the market, which is demonstrated globally and happens on a larger scale. Regardless, even if I concede that your view, we allow it, you are openly okay with the fact that hundreds of thousands of children do that just because mafifis. That is
No,
crazy.
Whoa. Nowhere in this debate did I say that I think it's okay for children to be prostituted or harmed by people
You're
who are
okay
older
as
than
long as you get to have sex
hold
with your
on.
wife or
Hold
whoever.
on.
You are.
Okay, so then I could equally say that you are okay with drunk drivers killing children because you believe that cars should be legal.
No, because I said it's illegal to drink and drive.
So you don't care
There's
about children
laws.
getting killed by drunk drivers. You think it's
Should
okay?
we make laws for prostitution? Should we regulate it?
No.
It doesn't follow.
But you
Like,
don't
it's a
think we
false
should ban
comparison
cars? Should we
fallacy.
ban cars? Yes or no? Oh, yeah.
No.
Okay. So then you're okay with the children who are getting killed by drunk drivers. You're okay with that?
No, because we can make other laws.
Okay,
It
so
doesn't
then
demonstrate your
listen to me,
proposition.
Then me saying that I think prostitution should be legal isn't me saying that
Should we
I'm
make-
okay.
should-
Hold on.
Should we make?
Hold on.
Okay. This
Me
doesn't look good for
saying,
you,
wait. Me
So,
saying,
guys, let me just step in here for a
Yeah.
second. Let's try not to talk over each other. All right.
Sorry.
So give each
Okay.
other like
yeah.
a good amount of 20 seconds to talk, and then, just so we can keep the conversation going, not talk over each other, please and
Sorry.
thank you.
So me saying that I think prostitution be legal is not me saying that I think it's okay for those children to be harmed. The same way that you saying that you think cars should be legal does not mean that you think it's okay for those children to get killed by drunk driving accidents. Correct?
Yeah, this is a false equivalence fallacy. And basically, the reason why, as I said, is that this doesn't demonstrate your proposition to be true. And here's why. As I said, is that whenever you talk about making laws, it would just demonstrate that you wouldn't ban it outright. You would heavily regulate it, which you are still against because that violates your property rights. So there are two. Even if I give you the most amount for your argument, it still would demonstrate the necessity of to use force to limit people's self-ownership.
Yeah, because fundamentally, I don't believe in slavery. I don't think it's okay to restrict other people from doing what they want with their body, so long as they aren't harming another person. If I have sex with another person for money and somebody comes in and stops me from doing so, well, then they're basically saying, no, you don't have the right to do what you want with your body, your property. And they're basically saying that they have more of a right than me to tell me what I can do with my property.
Yes.
So
because we have
therefore,
duties.
fundamentally,
It's-
because I'm fundamentally against slavery, and I think that voluntary transactions in the market is perfectly legitimate. Yeah, I don't think it should be illegal for me to have sex with a prostitute. The same way that you don't think that somebody who's driving a car is responsible for all the people who get into
you said
drunk
that
driving
you can do
accidents.
You think you can do anything with your body? Do you think drunk driving should be legal?
Yes.
Are you
And
serious?
the only reason I could let me explain. The only reason why I don't think the state has the right to restrict me from drinking and driving is because the state is not the owner of the road. And this is me coming from a guy who actually does not drink alcohol. I don't drink alcohol, not even for fun. But the argument that us libertarians make is that the state is not the just owner of the roads in which it is claiming on, or claiming over. So therefore, they don't have the right to tell me what I can or cannot do in those roads. But let's say you were a toll road or a private property owner, and you had a requirement that people who are driving drunk are not allowed to drive on my road. Well, then that would be perfectly legitimate under my ethic.
Well, the thing is that, as I said, this is the differentiation between also you just arbitrarily define state. Because in your view, as I said, the East India Company did make laws and enforce them. So, like, even still, if it was granted, a private company can do everything in the sense of enforcing and taxing you. So, like, I don't see this point. Is that it just is you're okay with one person using force, but not the other.
Well, I'm not sure you would agree with this, because would you, let's say you're my you're my landlord, Connor, my landlord, and I'm living in one of your apartments, many apartments, because you seem to be a very wealthy landlord, right? Are you taxing me because are you charging me rent?
I mean, if we enter into an agreement, it depends on how you define taxing. Because, for example, if you're a stock share company, for example, like you're a landlord and you own shares in my business, and then I go up to you and say, dude, you owe me money, then I have an obligation to go to court and take my money. And the same thing goes
would that
for,
be a
I think,
tax?
in a society, it could be defined as a tax in a way, yeah.
See, here's how I would define a tax.
So
A tax would.
in a
Go ahead.
society, here, let me finish. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
in society, I think we have a duty, and we see in Galatians that people have a duty for the general welfare and security of their nation and for their fellow countrymen. And whenever that happens, is that basically, as I said, stealing, slavery, there has to be an absence of a duty. So I don't think this would be theft or slavery because, as I said, it's the shares of it. So your community, you owe something to your community, and your community gives to you. And this prevents the inference of the mafia or anything because you don't owe them anything. And in the example I used of the investment stock company, you do owe someone if you aren't paying up.
Yeah, but my only thing is I look at the state as being that mafia that you are describing. They are the people who are not the just owners of the land. They didn't get it through voluntary transaction or original appropriation. And they come in and they say, hey, we are going to protect you regardless of whether you want the service or not. And if you do not pay us, we are going to put a gun to your head and throw you into a cage. That to me sounds like a mafia or a criminal organization.
Well, I mean, in your view, it's okay to abandon children, drink and drive, but I mean, slavery isn't seeming too bad in your view.
Wait.
I think.
What drinking and driving in itself, right? Yeah, I could at least grant you that it's very reckless and you could very much harm another person. But in itself, let's say if I'm on my own property and I'm drinking a couple back and nobody's around me from 2-3 miles away, and I'm just driving around in circles having a good time, should I be stopped from doing that?
I mean, you can in certain situations, yeah.
All right, so drunk driving in itself isn't inherently a rights violation, right?
It puts potential people on the road at risk, where whole families can
in
die
that
from your
hypothetical that I
recklessness.
gave earlier, right?
In your hypothetical of you drinking, I mean, if you drink and then you get
and I'm
drunk
on my
and
own
you grab a
property and I'm not harming, nobody's around me from like a mile away, I'm driving around in circles, that's not inherently violating anyone's rights, right?
Yeah, because you're not putting others at risk, yeah.
All right. So drink driving in itself shouldn't be illegal. The crime is the crashing of or harming the other individual. That's the crime.
Potential risk of it's the potential risks of delirious decision making. And that's the reason why many things are illegal, because it's a threat to public health and safety.
Well, if you're the owner I'll give you this. If you're the owner of some land and some roads and you want to put up a policy of do not drunk drive onto my land, then you're the more than welcome to do so. The issue is I do not consider the state to be the just owner of the land. They did not get it through voluntary transaction. They're not rent collectors.
Neither did the East India Company.
Well, I don't know what an East India Company is. All I could tell you is
okay. So
But
So here, let me
you're
explain.
giving me a historical example. If you want to tell me if these people, right, that you're talking about, did they get their land through voluntary transaction or consensual voluntary transaction or homesteading?
Basically, so let me explain the history. The East India Company was a stock company of British mercenary. I mean, they traded a bunch of different things like spices and stuff. They're located in London. Okay. However, they had enough money from their trade where they could buy mercenaries, and they had a larger military force than the country of the United Kingdom and even other countries. So what they did is they took that to the Mughal Empire in India, and they conquered the entire empire and established their own system of officers, laws, and regulations. In your view, that private company just became a state. So even in your hypothetical, that would mean that it
Here's the
doesn't
difference.
get you
I'll tell you the
anywhere.
difference afterward. You're done.
Go ahead.
So here's the difference, right? There's a difference between governance and a state, right? A state, a state isn't the only way in which you could govern property. If you're the owner of your land and you have a gun and you shoot off any person that walks on your land, you're governing your property. You're your own government. The issue that I have with the state is that they're doing it involuntarily, whereas a private
Yeah,
property,
they did
when
that
they govern,
voluntarily, Yeah.
I mean, if they do, then I'm against it, of course. But what
but they're a private company, so
Hold on, I can't speak on historical examples that I have no idea about. You could explain it to me, but I can't tell what you're saying is true. So all I can tell you is my ethics, and based on that, you can tell me what you believe. But my ethics are fundamentally, if you're the owner, which would make, and the way you become the owner of that property is through consensual transaction or homesteading. If you're the owner of that property and you govern your property, that's not a coercive state. That's just you governing your property. A coercive state is a group of people who claim over land, the same way like a mafia does, claim over land, and then say, hey, we are going to charge you protection, and if you do not pay into our services, we are going to throw you into a cage or shoot you.
that's
Would you
good
disagree
rhetoric.
with that?
But well, as I said, there's different duties. As I said, and you can owe someone something in even the investment example we used. And back to the historical example or reality rather than like some weird hypothetical, is that we do see that companies do that. Like if they get enough power and influence, the power and influence allows them to buy mercenaries and use force and to hurt other people. And in your view, okay, so let's talk about this. Are you okay with lobbying?
I'm against the state.
You are okay with the contractual agreements of people funding the government?
No,
doing that stuff,
I'm
right?
against lobbying. I think that lobbying is people paying the state to do what they want and to put in laws that favor them. That people who do that are
So you don't-
basically an arm of the state. They are part of the state. Corporations that
Okay.
use the state in order to put in regulations to stomp out competitors are an arm of the state.
So okay, just to confirm, you think that we should step in to prevent people from lobbying, correct?
Well, I'm against the state. So I'm against the whole idea of you. So this is how I view the state. You got to look at it from my perspective. Lobbying is no different to me than me going to a criminal organization and paying them to put laws in other people's place. So I should not be allowed to do that. That's how I would justify that.
So like George Soros, like if he wants to fund like a government and in Colombia or like a paramilitary group or something, and we have the ability to use force to stop him from doing that, correct?
Oh, well, okay. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. All I'm going to tell you is what is legal from my perspective. If somebody is paying a criminal organization to commit crimes, they are an aggressor, right?
Okay, so we should stop them, correct?
Yes. But
Okay, so you don't own
fundamentally, that
yourself.
is. So then you agree with me that a state is a criminal organization.
No, but your axiom is
Okay.
wrong, that self-ownership, because that's a consensual agreement. You just conceded your
How is that
argument.
wait. A consensual agreement, I could consensually buy a slave from another person, but the issue with that is you have an unwilling third party in the mix. That is another self-owner that is being forced into that transaction without their consent.
Yep.
If you pay another
Yeah.
person to kill or harm another person, there is an unwilling third party, self-owner, who's being dragged into that transaction without their consent. So no, that's not the same thing.
No, because your view is self-ownership is that you said that we should step in to stop the agreement of two people, which
If it
both parties
entails the
consent.
violation of another innocent person's rights, yes.
Okay, so basically, then I could say that we could reject anarcho-capitalism for the sake of that your view violates my rights to security and national security.
Yeah, but again, the state, when you pay for the state, you literally are doing that. You are paying the government, which are when you to pay the state is quite literally that criminal organization in which you want to get away from. The state forces you to pay into its system, right? And if you don't pay into its system, it's going to shoot you, even if you don't want the service. I'm a citizen I'm in America. I don't want all the services that the government pays, that the government uses my money for. They're sending my money to wars in other countries that I don't want my money to go to. That's a forceful extraction of wealth from me into the state's hands. I'm not obligated to pay them. Why am I obligated to pay them?
Well, I think that you're obligated to pay for your other countrymen, and I already acknowledged that. But
So
also, as I
so
said,
you
is
support
that-
slavery.
No, because I said absence of a duty, and you ignored that.
I don't
So the
have a
self-ownership
duty. Where's
principle,
my
but-
duty? What?
but-
Whoa, wait. You can't just you can't just run away from that. What creates this duty?
What creates its duty? Well, in my view, is that all duties stem from God. But in your view, you have no objective foundation of moral duties.
Neither do you.
Yeah, I do. Because do you understand metaethics?
The only way for you to prove that your objective morality is any bit different from my subjective morality is for you to prove that your God is real.
Also, by the way, I wanted to backtrack a little bit. So you did say that you can interfere on contracts that do harm other people or can harm other people, which still would refute the self-ownership principle because of, as we mentioned with prostitution, is that you can agree to something
A
and if it could
third and
potentially
any
harm it.
wait. So you're saying that you think that I am contradicting myself because I'm saying
Yes.
it's not okay. Hold on. You're saying that I think that I'm contradicting myself because I'm saying that it's not okay for a person to pay another person to kill another person.
Yes, because the contract is consensual between you and the other person. And
But
if you
the
own
other
yourself, you're allowed
person,
to do.
what about the unwilling
You're-
third party? That's a self-owner too. He's
Yeah,
not
but you
consenting
didn't
to
do
that.
Yes, I agree. And I even said that in your view is that if you own yourself, I can do whatever I want with my property, and party X can do whatever with their property as party Y.
Yeah,
We
like,
agree
you
and we
can't-
make a
So long
contract,
as you aren't
but
what?
then-
So long as you are not what?
But we both agreed.
Wait.
in that
So
contract,
wait. So long as you are not
that
what?
person.
So long as you are not what?
What are you trying to say?
So long
I
as
don't
you
know.
aren't initiating an aggression against another innocent person. If you're
don't have to do
if
it, though.
you're using your property to violate the rights of another third party, if you're paying another person to violate the property rights of another third party, you are responsible for that action. You are responsible for what you did to that person. It's not
Okay, you're mistaking
contradictory. It's not
Yes, it is.
contradictory at all to say that
Yeah,
that
it is.
willing third party is also a self-owner, and you do not have the right to use your property to violate that unwilling third party. And if
It's not your property anymore because you gave it to the other person.
okay, well then that person is now responsible for it.
Okay, so then it would be allowed, in your view, to have the consensual agreement between party X and X and Y, but not legal.
So
to
if
do
I
from
pay,
Y
you're
to
saying
Z.
that if I pay another person to kill another person, I'm not responsible. If that's what you think I'm saying.
In my view, yes, you are. In your
I've
view,
never
is
said that.
self-ownership.
I've never said that in
Yeah,
this whole
you're
conversation.
self-owner-
If you
It's
set
about
up
an internal
an
critique.
agreement with another person and you pay them to kill another person, there is an unwilling third party in the transaction that is being forced to do,
They're-
into that transaction against their will. Again, I
They're
do
not
not
making a
support
contract.
that. There are 3 people in that transaction. There's the first person, the the first person who's paying him, the second person who's killing him, and the third person who is being harmed. The third person is an unwilling third party who is being forced into the transaction against their will. That would be a violation of the non-aggression principle. Very easy, very simple.
No, actually, this doesn't fix your point, because so let's say that we are at a dinner table and I hand you money, $1,000, and that's between you and me. The third
Mhm.
person isn't part of that contract.
Are you handing them the money for me to kill that person?
Yeah, but the person doesn't
Okay,
have
so
to.
then you are transacting that person, and the service of that transaction is for you to kill that other person. You're paying that person to kill that other person, which would mean that you are responsible for what that person does as well, because you
I
are the
agree.
one that are making the argument. So it's not very hard to understand why
So you don't own
that is a
yourself.
violation. You do own yourself, but you don't
No,
own
you
the
don't.
you don't own the unwilling third party. Do you own the unwilling third party?
No, and what I'm
Okay,
saying
so then
is,
you agree with me. So if there is an
No, I
unwilling,
don't.
if there
You
is an
don't
unwilling
understand
third, hold on. If there is an unwilling third party in the transaction, then you are violating the
they're not in the
property.
transaction.
You are violating the property rights of the unwilling third party.
I agree that you're violating the
If
rights.
I could
but
just
they're not-
step in here for a second. Let's try not to speak over each other. Give each other like 20 seconds to talk, just so we can
Okay.
keep going. All right, thank you.
All right, I'm not
All
going
right,
to
sounds
continue
good.
repeating myself. If you don't understand why paying another person to kill another person is violating the rights of another unwilling third party, then I'm just I'm lost
All
for
right,
words.
let's let Connor talk, please. Thank you.
That's a straw man of my position. And as I said, is that a contractual agreement is an agreement between two parties. And you can see this in any form of economics textbook out there. And as I said, the agreement of the money for the service is between party X and Y. The service does not have to be initiated too. That is a free choice of party Y. So in your view, is that the process of agreeing to do that would have to be allowed in the self-ownership axiom, because it is entirely a consensual agreement. The thing that would be wrong would be the attack or aggression towards Z by Y. However, if you go in and you're in a contradiction, because you said we should stop X and Y from having a contract, so you do not own yourself in your view.
What does that contract entail?
It doesn't matter
It does matter.
in your view.
It does matter
No, it
in my
doesn't.
view. I'm telling you it matters in my view.
Are you stopping a consensual contract between two people?
What does that contract entail? It depends on what that contract entails.
Okay, so if it matters on what it entails, then we should make prostitution illegal because it entails sex work.
Not okay, but
Or
again,
sorry, not
sex
sorry,
work. Sex work
illegal
does
sex
not
work.
does not affect an unwilling third party. If I have sex now, if you can, I will agree with you if you can answer this very simple hypothetical. I'm in a bedroom. I have sex. Then another woman is like, "I'll have sex with you for $100." I give her the money. She has sex with me. Show me the unwilling third party within that transaction.
The unwilling third party is the person in the future where your normalized behavior
Who is
ultimately
that?
leads them to being so. It could be anyone. It could be a 14-year-old girl.
She's not even
Yeah.
in the room.
Yeah,
How am
neither
I
is the
harming
person
her?
you're going to hire.
How am I harming her?
Neither is the person that you're going to kill with the hitman example, dude.
No, wait.
You just conceded your argument.
I'm
Yeah.
not. Wait. But am I harming? What have I done to that girl? What have I done to her?
What has the person done who hired the hitman?
They've killed the person, but I haven't harmed the
No,
girl.
they didn't. No, they
I
didn't.
haven't
They
harmed
made
the
a
girl.
consensual agreement.
But what have I
Neither
done
has
to
the
the?
person-
Wait. If I pay somebody to kill somebody, it entails somebody being dead from that transaction. If I have sex with another woman, nobody's dying from that transaction. Unless you can point to somebody that's dying because of that transaction or being killed or being harmed, then I'm sorry, there's no unwilling third participant in that transaction. It's very easy, very simple.
No, it's not. You're not understanding it, because I agree the intent is different. The difference
then you
is
agree
if
with
the
me. Thank you.
self-owner. No, I don't. Because the self-ownership axiom says it is not wrong for two parties to enter in a consensual contractual agreement. And in your case, is you're saying that they can't do it because it harms other people. Yet I've demonstrated with the studies is that your thing leads to societal harms, which would entail you do not own yourself, and we can step in. It's not that complicated to understand.
Wait. When you drive your car, are you responsible for the children who die in car accidents?
If you cause a car accident, yeah.
Okay. If I have sex with a girl for money, am I responsible for a girl being raped?
If not for the rape, but you are responsible for another action. As I
Okay,
said,
so
which
then
is
it
the
doesn't
instability
matter.
of society.
It doesn't matter because I'm not responsible for that. I didn't cause that. I wasn't there. I didn't do anything to that woman. I'm not responsible.
That wasn't my argument.
It is your
As I
argument.
said, no, it's not. My argument is not that you
Then
are
it doesn't matter
responsible
to
for
me.
my art. Well, then we can. That
And it doesn't matter
because
to you
you made an
neither.
over-contradiction.
And it doesn't matter
Yes,
to
it
you
does.
neither. If it mattered to you, then you would have to agree with me that you're responsible
No.
for the children dying because of car
Guys.
accidents.
Let's continue to not talk over each other, please. I know it's kind of getting a little bit heated
Sorry.
here, but please try to stay respectful. Give each other time to speak.
Yeah, this still doesn't get him out of his open contradiction, because I never said that the sex trafficker, a person who agrees to prostitution, is guilty of the crime of sex trafficking. And that would go along with his analogy of the person driving and whether that should be allowed. My ought was in the social stability and commodification of sex. And even still, it doesn't get him out of the contradiction of his principle of self-ownership, because as long as two parties agree, regardless of the harms that they do, is that would be allowed under the self-ownership axiom. So by him saying earlier that we should prevent that, he contradicts the self-ownership principle and demonstrates his argument is ad hoc and arbitrary.
Yeah, I can very easily debunk this by explaining very easily. If you are going into a consensual contract between you and another person, and that contract entails the death of another unwilling third participant, well, then you are responsible for that because you are the one who is signing that or being party to that contract. If I get into a consensual transaction with another person, and it does not entail the harm or death of another unwilling third party, then I'm not responsible for whatever happens to any other third party that happens, because I'm not party to that transaction. It's very easy to understand. I don't understand why you continue to make this point. I'm not going to answer this again. So unless you have another point, I'm going to move on.
Yeah. My point is that not only did you agree to abandoning children earlier, and also
yes, I'm against slavery.
Abandoning children. Tell that to the judge, bro. But like basically, whenever you talk about this example of self-ownership, I'm not saying that the person isn't responsible. I'm saying that the self-ownership principle of me owning myself is that you are willing to use force to prevent them from doing that harm, but that would mean that you're pro-slavery too, because you're willing to force someone not to do something you don't want to, which puts you also in a performative contradiction.
If stopping somebody from murdering another person makes me pro-slavery, then call me a slaver.
Well, yeah, I mean, you killed and committed manslaughter with the children that we mentioned earlier, but you call that slavery.
Whoa, I've never killed anyone, okay? I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I
am very anti-slavery. I'm very anti-killing anyone. Nobody in this conversation has said, as far as I could tell, that I think it's okay to kill anyone. I think it's okay to murder anyone. So I'm not sure where you're getting any of that from, Mr. Bad Faith over here.
It's not bad faith. I said that your position entails manslaughter of children.
Again, if I am not the one killing that baby, then I'm not responsible for it. If somebody dies of natural causes, I'm not responsible for it. If an old person dies of old age, I'm not responsible for it because they're living in my house. If I choose to relinquish the right of being a parent, and as a result, that person dies, then that's not my fault. Fundamentally, I do not believe you have an obligation to give up your property or your rights to any other person. I am very anti-slavery. I think it's wrong to force people to do things for other people against their will. And I think that we should completely abolish slavery as well as taxation, because taxation is completely theft. Now, moving on, do you think that taxation is theft?
Abandoning your children suffer manslaughter, by the way.
Let me just step in here real quick. Let's limit with the name calling. Please try not stay respectful, please. Let's just keep this conversation going. So Connor, go ahead. Let's just keep
Yeah,
doing
so-
the same thing. 20 seconds each, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, as he keeps using these terms, which, as I said, is that he uses these rhetorical devices such as slavery whenever he already contradicted his principle of self-ownership multiple times. And also he says slavery whenever he's okay with committing manslaughter and putting a child in a vulnerable position. As I said, neglect of your child is still you causing them to ultimately die whenever that can be intentional or paid for. And as he said earlier, he would be okay if BlackRock gave women $1,000. Yet that's a consensual agreement, and then he's not okay with the $1,000 to the hitman or whoever, even though both will harm someone. He only applies his logic whenever it's convenient. And so whenever he talks about taxation as theft, I think that's moot to the fact that he's okay with these children potentially being harmed. And as I said, this proves my opening statement of things like leading to gratuitous evils like child abandonment, and even moralizing things like necrophilia, or even, I could argue, even I think bestiality he would be okay with in his view.
And yeah, you're completely comfortable with the idea of children being killed in drunk driving accidents because you support, from what I hear, the idea of allowing people to use their cars to drive from point A to point B, which then increases the amount of children being in drunk driving accidents. So if I'm responsible for, children being harmed because of the legalization of prostitution, well, then I guess you're just as guilty as I am because you support something that also increases the harm to children as well. Fundamentally, I think that taxation is theft because it is a forceful extraction of wealth from another innocent person. The whole third party situation, I feel like I've already addressed that like 3 times, so I'm not going to go into it. At this point, I haven't really heard a good argument as to why taxation isn't theft. It seems like you agree with me that on the one argument about the slavery thing, because it is somebody being forced to, you do agree that you should be forced to take care of your child against your will. And that is, by definition, slavery is forcing somebody to take care of somebody against their will.
No one thinks
But the
it's slavery.
argument, but fundamentally, like the main argument that I really haven't gotten an argument for is why taxation isn't theft. It is fundamentally a forceful extraction of wealth from people who don't want the services that are being paid for.
So I think anyone who's watching this debate, I think it's important to notice the differences because, as I said, in my opening and also elsewhere, I mentioned that there can be situations where we owe each other things. And this is why taxation cannot be theft, not only because the state provides the enforcement arm for our rights, and also it ensures public welfare and security. And not only that, as I mentioned, 80% of people are okay with that, which would be a form of assent. But ultimately, I think it just demonstrates that his view, like, people don't feel that way, and most people don't think that child, like, what's it called, taking care of your kid is slavery. But also the fact that priorities and values is that most people are okay with maybe a 10% tax. Maybe people are not okay with taxes being as high as they are. But most people have the unshakable intuition that things that are like necrophilia, bestiality, or a child abandonment ought to be illegal. And the priority here is tax dollars. I think that it shows a very different view of what matters in society.
Well, the things in which you're trying to bring up are a lot of those things in which I'm not necessarily against are things in which you could do with your property that don't violate the property rights of another person. The thing that I'm against is the state coming in and forcefully extracting wealth from innocent people. You're saying that the state is here to protect our rights, but as far as I could tell, if I do not want the state to protect my rights, then they will violate my rights by forcefully throwing me into a cage or shooting me if I don't pay. And this whole idea that, 80% of the people or 90% of the people support taxation, therefore it makes it okay. If 90% of the population thought it was rape was okay, would that then make it okay? I'm not sure you would really hold that up.
This is a huge problem in your view because not only, this gets back to my main point. Comparing taxation to rape does not make grape more evil or taxation more evil. It makes grape look more normal because these obviously, we know in our view, are completely different things. And also, this doesn't even mean, as I said, in his view, is that 80% would consent and assent to it. And in his view, he's allowed to revoke his citizenship, leave, he's allowed to live as a hermit or whatever, and he goes along with it to get the benefits. So why should my tax dollars actually protect someone who doesn't want to be provided by them? I think that as
I
a
agree.
citizen, so this is the thing. So he shouldn't be able to use my tax dollars, but I'm completely okay with my tax dollars providing my public services. So he steals from me by using the services I paid for without my consent.
Bro, I haven't stolen anything from you. As far as I could tell, I've never met you in real life. I've never taken anything from your pocket. I've never, but I can't really say the same for the government. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of things that the government spends your money on that you would rather them not spend your money on, and yet they steal it from you and they spend it on those things anyways. I mean, are you okay with all the money that is being sent to other countries to be going around killing children? I mean, do you agree with 100% of the things that have been? Okay, so then the government is stealing your money and spending it on those things. So fundamentally, whenever somebody takes something from you by force and spends it on things that you don't want, that is normally is considered to be theft.
No, yeah, this is just, as I said, these are just rhetorical dialogues because the government doesn't come to my house and point a gun in my face. And as I said, we do have an obligation to our society, which he's neglecting the fact that we should take care of each other in our society. And as I said, that doesn't neglect the case is if someone took or even I am okay with someone using my money to buy something. Like, let's say I gave someone my money to buy like a fridge, and this guy over here uses my fridge without my consent, then because he doesn't believe it's okay, then he still violates my property rights. So in his view is that by him not agreeing to pay taxes and him using things like roads that I pay for, he would be doing the same exact problem that I do.
Again, that saying, oh, but somebody could, if we don't have the government, someone's going to steal your fridge, is not refuting the argument that I'm making. The argument that I'm making is fundamentally taxation is a forceful extraction of wealth to pay for things that you do not want. And fundamentally,
for you, not me.
No, because even you agreed that the state is spending I mean, unless you're going to sit here and say that you agree with 100% of the things that the state is spending your money on, yeah, then even yourself, even you, I would have to say that the state is taking your money and spending it on things that you don't want. And as far as I could tell, when somebody forces you to pay into something that you don't want, that is theft. And to the whole notion that the government isn't. Hold on, one last point. One last sentence. And this whole notion that the government isn't coming to my house and pointing a gun to my head. Well, stop paying taxes and see what will happen.
Yeah, and so this actually leads to a huge problem in his view because, as I said, so if I give my friend $20 and my buddy over here gets me some things that I do want and uses it on other stuff, they didn't technically steal from me. They might have done something gratuitously moral, and I'm not saying that the government can't do things that aren't gratuitously moral, which I addressed in my opening statement. But as I said, this entire thing is just government bad. I can leave and do whatever, and that I'm okay with private companies doing the same thing, which I mentioned historically they have.
Yeah, but you're not addressing my argument. So are you making the argument that if I'm benefiting from a service, I should be forced to pay for it?
What's it called? I'm making the argument that you are obligated to your society and other countrymen, and retroactively by participating in said society, you owe your society something.
What creates this obligation? I don't feel obligated to the guy next door to me.
Are resources scarce?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're using the scarcity of resources, which deprives other people of that thing.
Well, the thing is, so long as you've gotten that thing through voluntary transaction or initial,
So that doesn't mean you don't
you're not
owe them
violating
that
anyone's right.
So basically, yeah, in a way, like if you're going to take that view, is that, for example, is that if resources are scarce, and that I go outside and I homestead, which he kind of just grants himself that. But if you homestead, you just deprive someone of having those resources and so on to use for themselves. No one ever actually agreed for you to do that if you just homestead something.
Wait a minute.
Like you just took that upon yourself.
If property is theft, who are you stealing from? If it's unowned land, right? Nobody's been there before. Whose rights are you violating? No person has been there before. You're not taking anything away from somebody that was already in their possession. So...
No,
you're not violating anyone's rights. Who are you stealing from?
I'm saying is that all property rights, as I mentioned in my opening, is a social construct. If I have claims on that land, even though I didn't homestead it, like I didn't build there, is that technically I could say that's theft. So if that's the case, is that these are consensual contracts and agreements, I can literally just say that it is my property. Like I own the land around, I own the airspace around KingSithis' house right now. And if he breathes right now, he is using my property.
Yeah, you can make up whatever property ethic you want. All I'm going to tell you is the libertarian anarcho-capitalist property ethic. And our libertarian anarcho-capitalist property ethic is the person who's gotten their goods from homesteading or voluntary transaction is what makes them the owner. The reason why we believe that is by doing those things, you are not initiating force against any unwilling third party or unwilling person. And you are arguing that I'm not really sure what you're arguing.
Did I unconsensually, what's it called? Or did I aggress by claiming ownership of the air in your house right now?
I'm not sure how you could enforce that.
Well, how do you enforce property rights?
Well, I'm not really sure how you can own air. Air isn't something that I can really exclude you
How
from.
can you own? How can you own land?
Well, because land is something in which you can exclude others from. If you homesteaded it and got it before another person, you would have more of a claim to that thing than another person would. The reason why that is because you're not violating anyone's rights by using that thing.
Well, so that leads to a problem because both are not only material things, but also I could literally just extract the air from him, and I didn't cause him to die. I let him die from natural processes, as he mentioned earlier. So that would lead me to the conclusion that ultimately I can own air if I want to, just like he can own land, and he can't say anything against it, and that's a valid libertarian ethic. So he violated my NAP because that's my air.
I don't even know how to respond to that. That's the most stupidest thing I've heard in my life. Fundamentally,
you were literally arguing for manslaughter.
I'm just gonna ask you.
I'm gonna have to step in. I'm gonna have to step in here. Obviously, we're not gonna accept the disrespect, calling people stupid and stuff. So
no, I didn't say he was stupid. I said that what he said was very stupid. But whatever. It's whatever.
Yeah. So I guess my question for you guys: we are like 1 hour into the free flow. How much time do you guys want to go for here?
I would like to actually let's ask over Reductio on bestiality. So do people own their animals?
Yeah.
So animals are property?
Yep.
And we can eat animals?
Yep.
So we can harm animals without their consent?
Yes.
Would it be okay to have penetrative anal sex with a goat?
Would it be okay in the sense that I think it's like people should do that? No. Do I think it's illegal? Whether or not it would be illegal is whether or not you're the owner of the goat. Wait, Connor, are you vegan? Wait, Connor, are you vegan?
No, this is an internal critique.
Oh, wait. Basically, okay, so you think it's okay to kill wait, you don't think you think it's okay to eat animals?
Can we go through this? So in his view, it's okay to have sexual intercourse with the goat through their anus. And so do people respond to incentives, as we said earlier? Do people respond to incentives?
Yes.
No, I already answered. So,
okay, so you think it's okay to kill an animal, but you can't eat an animal.
Let's not talk over each other. So let's allow Connor 20 seconds to make his point. KingSithis can reply and then make his point as well.
Okay.
Okay, so in his view is that so if people respond to incentives and there is the meat industry, in his ANCAP society, someone could have a sex business where they have anal copulation with a bunch of goats for money, and he's trying to say that this is better. This is better than the Christian paradigm. So not only do we have manslaughter, we have contracts that are just arbitrarily defined. We have literally businesses of anally penetrating goats. How can anyone actually say this view is better than Christian ethics?
Again, so you're vegan?
No.
Okay, so you think it's okay to eat animals, it's okay to kill animals, to torture animals, but if you have sex with an animal, that's just too far.
Yeah, because they're disordered relationships, because they're non-rational animals.
It's completely,
anyway, so
it's very inconsistent way of looking at it, right?
No, it's not.
It is very inconsistent.
I think sex is reserved for marriage for rational animals like humans. So basically, when we get to necrophilia,
so it is inconsistent.
Let's talk about necrophilia. So is it morally permissible for if someone were to sign a contract in their will for someone to have copulation with a dead body?
That's up to them, man.
So Granny says in her will,
Assuming that
I
no one's rights are being violated in the process of this action. Yeah, that's
okay,
up to them.
in your view, is that what's it called? You would define a person as someone who has like some form of sentient or conscious experience, correct?
Yeah, right. That's how it would be defined,
Yeah,
right?
okay. Okay, so if someone's dead, they're not a person, correct?
No, not anymore. No.
So if someone dies in the street, would it would be morally permissible then to claim them as property and use them as a sex doll?
Assuming that nobody claimed that property beforehand, so there are people who have like wills before they die, and like my body will then be transferred to upon my death. My body will transfer to like my relatives so they can bury me. Assuming that all those things are not in place, then I mean, have at it.
So get this.
Have at it.
In his view, Granny dies in public. Someone goes up to Granny, use Granny as a sex doll, and he still goes on with this. And it's like, oh well, if someone has an agreement beforehand, then it's wrong. So okay, would it be okay if a 12-year-old dies for someone to do the same?
I mean, I'm not gonna go into the child stuff, so I'm not gonna answer that.
Wait, no.
No, stop.
No,
Right now.
no, no.
Stop right now.
I'm gonna have to step in here.
Stop.
If we can potentially move on to another topic in specific with the debate, that would be great.
Yeah.
I think I want to end the debate on this point. So if a 12-year-old dies,
Okay,
is it
I'm
okay to do the
gonna
same thing?
leave, bro. If he does, I just said to stop. Stop. Right now.
Debate
Alright.
at any time. If it's okay.
All right. So I think at this point as a moderator, I'm just gonna have to step in, stop the debate. If you guys want to have a Q&A session, we can have people ask questions. If you guys want to move on with that, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to talk about anything other than mutilated children. I'm not going to talk about that. That's one thing I'm not going to talk about. And if you want to talk about, if you refuse to move on from that topic, then the debate is over.
Well, then we have to end the debate because I think it
that's
is not
perfectly
morally
fine. Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
But your view entails that.
Whatever.
How's that
again,
feel?
I'm
Like,
not going to go
wait,
on.
Whatever. That's okay.
I'm not going to go on
That's
to
okay.
that.
That's okay to have sex
All
with
right, so,
unalive children, in your view.
All right. So, I mean, if you guys want to, we can just move on to a little Q&A session and just end the debate here.
Mhm.
If that's okay with you guys. All right. So if anybody in the Discord has questions on YouTube or Twitch, go ahead, put your questions in, and then I can read them out loud. Silence has a question here in Discord. If you just want to put it in the chat, go for it. And then Connor, I'll unmute you.
Okay, they can pull them up whenever.
Can I bring him up to the stage?
Sure.
Is that okay? Yeah. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. Silence. Hello?
Hello?
All right. We can hear you. Ask your question. Go ahead.
Pretty like fucking dead goats in this debate. I kind of got lost in that. What was your point you was trying to bring up?
My point is that his view is that it's okay as long as a contractual agreement with anything, and that his view leads to the fact that you can have copulation with animals, and ultimately, as I showed, that it's also with dead people, and that involves minors who are dead too.
Interesting.
All right. Any other questions?
All right. Also earlier, I don't know if you saw I raise my hand, but remember y'all was talking about like the money transaction and thing, like like if you pay someone money or something, if you paid him $1,000 and someone dies. Actually, there's like a law or something like that, right? Like you can still be a part of the murder, including like if you pay somebody, like a hitman or some shit, right? I forgot what the law is called or some shit.
Yeah,
But
I agree with you. Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out, like, you know, like a perfect example. Like, if you pay somebody to kill somebody, you still could be a part of it because you're paying like a hitman or an assassin or whatever. I think that.
Yeah, my view isn't that they aren't morally responsible. My view is that his self-ownership principle will ultimately entail that it be acceptable.
That's all I got.
He misunderstood what I was saying.
Thank you.
You want to bring up the kids that are
alright.
dead?
So, all right, let's
All right,
continue on.
do I gotta
The
kick you
guy
from the
wants to-
Discord or something, dude? Like, are you gonna stop saying that?
All right. All right.
Why
let's
stop saying it?
here.
All right. Any other questions?
I was going to ask him about like what his opinion was, like how one of the commandments says, "Thou shalt not steal." I just wonder how he justified that. I mean, is this what like I haven't read the Bible much, so I thought that was a tenet. So I was wondering how that's like explained with taxation. I guess he's saying it's group consent. That's all. I was wanted to ask him about that. I thought it was absolute.
Yeah, I
That was
kind of
it.
kicked him because he refused to stop talking about that. So,
Yeah, I can understand that.
and I'm not gonna sit here and like, if I keep telling you no, I don't want to answer that question. I don't want to answer that question, and you keep on and on and on and on. Like, now at that point, you're being too much.
Yeah, I agree. I guess someone else can ask a question if they had that in chat.
Anyone? Is that it? Yeah, I think that. Oh, William. I'm letting you up. I gotta click ready. Something. There you go.
Sorry about that. I was a little bit. How do I put it? I didn't know how this worked. A little bit. Sorry about that. Haven't been on one of these kind of things for a long time. Yeah.
Mhm.
I was wondering if, as a kind of I guess sort of a suggestion, like when the person was bringing up harm, I would have recommended using the term aggression instead. Like essentially, like if you hire someone to commit aggression, that's not allowed. But harm, even if prostitution is harmful, and it is, it's not aggression in the same way that as like unaliving someone would. I think that would
No,
be like
you're
a better
right.
way.
You're
to
right. That's what I meant to say. That's what I meant to say. You know. You're right.
Yeah, it makes sense. Because yeah, I think that would get you out of that implication easily. If you're paying someone to commit aggression, then that would be a violation of the NAP. Whereas, for example, paying someone to do something that may indirectly harm third parties without aggressing upon them, that would be consistent with what's it called? That would not be a violation of the NAP.
Yeah.
If there's no other questions, then I guess we're done here, right?
Yep. I think so. Unless somebody wants to raise their hand,
All right.
but it doesn't look like anyone is. So.
All right. Well, I'm gonna be heading out. Thank you
All right,
for the
man.
debate.
You too.